Hello, and welcome back to another global day of Jewish learning. First, I'd like to thank all the staff and participants in this great day of celebrating Jewish learning worldwide. As a secondary and much more saddened opening, I would like to extend our condolences and our friendship, brotherhood to the French people and the inhabitants of Paris. This kind of act of evil has no explanation that one can fathom. I do not believe for a second that any of the French people did something wrong to deserve it. It's an act of madmen, and those we have to deal with and destroy them from the face of the earth. It's mentioned in the scriptures that when you see evil, it's not just enough to say no to it, you actually have to eradicate it, to destroy it, to damage it, to absolutely vanquish it. As the hate of God to evil is absolute. It's our responsibility as human beings to care about each other, to take that time, take the effort, and handle this issue to the fullest. Again, our condolences and fraternity with the French people. But to our topic today, we're going to discuss in next short time part of the problem we have with the book of Genesis, Sefer Bereshit. The older you get, the more time you have to reflect on this book. It seems that nothing is simple. One of the peculiar ideas, people in general feel that in order to advance their learning or advance their understanding, they have to go to the depth of things. They have to go to see the mysticism and the inner meaning of things and to develop a deeper relationship with the Almighty. Learning, participating in spiritual concepts of what is the meaning of the word Bereshit, which is a variety of explanations. One of the problems we have is that there's even simple text in the Bible, and specifically, for me at least, in the book of Genesis, is very problematic. Some of the text not just doesn't make sense, it's almost the opposite. It's making us reflect differently on the stories. It's making us ask, really? That's what it says? I would like today, because the time is short, to bring it closer to the topic at hand for this year Global Day of Jewish Learning, talk about love, and in our sense, maybe even dysfunctionality of the lack of our abilities to make a normal conversation in the book of Genesis. So, Sefer Bereshit is the first book of the Bible, the first book of the 5 books of Moshe. Traditionally, we believe that Moshe Rabbeinu was the author responsible for writing it. God dictated it. He probably also had his own personal stories and his ideas to add to it. It was basically dictated by God. The book of Genesis has 54 chapters. It's a beautiful book. We just actually, from our perspective here in Israel, came up with a new commentary on it. Rabbi Stein's new commentary on the book of Genesis just came out. It's the 50 chapters. It's a book like this, beautiful. It's shortly going to be in English. But this book, if you look through it properly, you realize that Almost every conversation in the book is negative. If the conversation between God to man, it's a conversation between man to his brother, man to his kids, man to his wife. All the conversations seems to take place in a negative context. Let me start with the first conversation. First conversation is taking place in the first 12 hours of creation of the world. In this conversation, the famous snake of the Garden of Eden, is the part of the primal source, primal text that we have, talks about the commandment of God, do not eat from the tree of knowledge. And the snake, it was apparently a very brilliant snake, ability to think, talk, walk, approaching the wife, approaching the Chava, the mother of all people, and he tells her, why don't you eat from the apple, or the tree, or the fig, whatever the tree was, why don't you eat from it? And then we had this lovely conversation, but the conversation, as being maybe the first conversation we have, is generally the snake trying to convince Chava, Eve, our foremother, to betray her man and betraying God. There's no reference somewhere to saying what conversation was between Chava, Eve, to Adam. Why to eat the apple? Did she give him an apple pie? Did she make apple crust? I don't know. There's no conversation about the details. It's just a one conversation between Chava and the snake, and that's it. We're moving on the historical timeline. The next conversation we have, we have a variety of them. One conversation we have is a conversation between Avram and God. Abraham, our forefather, is having a conversation with God about destruction of the city of Sodom, also of Sodom. Gomorrah, famous by their terrible behavior and so on and so forth. And he has a whole negotiation with God. It's beautiful. Might took hours of conversation with God, praying, begging, asking from God to forgive the people, to find a solution. Maybe there'll be 50 righteous people in the city, maybe 40, maybe 35. God's going on in discussion with Avram about, again, death and destruction. Then, one of the interesting conversations we have immediately after is the conversation of Sarah, a foremother. She is being very frustrated. She's about 70-something years old. She's very frustrated. She doesn't have kids. She comes to Avram and said, you know what, I have a great solution. Absolutely amazing solution. I cannot bear children. Apparently, I can't. So, look, I have a slave, happened to be by the Midrash, by the stories, by the legendary, by our lore. She was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt. She was a servant, slave, not clear exactly what was the official status. Said, how about this? I will give you her. They consider in those days, they will consider as property. That she's my property, and I'll give it to you. You will have a relationship with her. You'll be intimate with her. You're going to have a child, and the child will be my child because she was my slave, and it's my property. Marvelous idea. This is we called marriage 101. When your wife, your spouse, asks you a question that you cannot answer truthfully, don't answer truthfully. It's the way it is. Don't answer. You ask a question. The famous question: am I fat? It doesn't matter. You cannot say that. You have to lie. Absolutely, dear. You're gorgeous, fabulous, amazing. Not talking about this. Why? Because whatever you're going to say, you're going to be wrong. So Avram apparently did not have marriage counseling 101. Says, sure, dear, I will have her. Happens to be 9 months later, he has a boy. Again, conversation with Avram and Sarah are not about considering, maybe, I'm thinking about it, I will consider it. No, it's like Sarah saying it. There's almost no response from Avram whatsoever. Just do it. Just does it and finish the problem. We continue about, it seems like very shortly after, Sarah getting very frustrated because all of a sudden that slave girl, the daughter of the Pharaoh, she's also already feeling very important. Here, her matron, the mistress of the house, is waiting to have kids from Avram Avinu to make basically the Jewish nation, and she cannot do it. And here comes the slave girl. All of a sudden, 10 minutes later, she has a baby. Of course, she's automatically, which is, I think, natural to everybody to see, she feels marvelous. I'm much better than my mistress. Sarah reacting to this. She's talking to Avram to say to him, I hate you. I'm very angry at you. How dare you do that? It's all your fault. As we warned Avram before, but he didn't listen to us. And immediately Avram goes to God. God says, hey, I don't have a choice either. Whatever Sarah said, listen to her. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, Avram wake up in the morning, bring a pot of water to his wife or his slave, whatever you want to call it, said, please go. I can't have you here. My dear wife will kill you. So please leave. And now the story goes, which of course, then she's saved, and we know now that her son, Ishmael, became the father of the Ishmaelite nation. If we're going on the same line, if we're going to go on around and around with it, constantly, throughout the Bible, the conversation, in the book of Genesis, constantly, the conversation and negative, is nothing positive. To make it even more bizarre, the only conversation that Avram and Sarah have that doesn't have to do with negativity, pain, suffering, death, whatever, is the one-liner. And Avram, when the three angels, story goes that Avram, after God gave him the commandment to do a circumcision, he had a circumcision, and apparently he's in a lot of pain. It's the third day. Traditionally, is the most painful day. And he has tremendous amount of pain, and God knows that the only thing Avram cares about is the ability to be kind. He wants to be kind to people. To show kindness. He wants to care about people. So therefore, God summoned three angels who come on the heat of the day. This is Beersheba. It's middle of the desert, and he tells them, "Come and visit Avram." And when they come visit Avram, it's middle of the day. It's scorching hot. Avram accepted him to his house. He's washed the legs. He said, come, stay with me a little bit. Come, rest with me a little bit in this my lovely tent, give you some shade, wash your legs, I'll give you something to eat. This is the only serious conversation went between Avram and Sarah, when Avram tells Sarah, outstanding line of, okay, go take flour, make cakes. That's it. For 127 years of the life of Sarah, the conversation we have, that has nothing to do with anything else, just with good and beauty, is that. Go take flour, go to the tent, make cakes. Now, that's not mind-boggling enough. We'll go move a little bit on. So the next parsha over, which is Parsha Toldot, so Parsha Vayera, the end after Sarah died, Avram called his servant, tells servant, please go to my in-laws in where they live, and please bring back a daughter, a female child that can marry my son. Mind you, this conversation is a very lengthy conversation, and he made his slave, who was actually his, but today we will use the word personal assistant. He basically made him swear that he will go first to his family and ask for them for a daughter if they have someone available for his son. The peculiar thing is that, again, according to a lore, according to a tradition, this particular slave, Eliezer, who was very close to Avram Avinu, had by himself a daughter, was suitable by age. But Avram insists bringing somebody specifically from his family to marry his own son. When after the conversation, the slave goes, Eliezer goes, comes to Ram Narayan, he does the deal, he finds the girls, he bring them back. Okay? That's the way it goes. They're going back, the girls is riding a camel. In the camel, she see a man sitting on the field. She asked the slave master, who is that person? He said, that is my master, Yitzchak, Isaac. She automatically, from her excitement, she fell down from the camel, and basically the first time they meet each other, they find each other. There's no conversation about the relationship. There's no conversation about anything. The only thing it says that Yitzchak had a tremendous love. Yehav Yitzchak et Rivka. And he loved her. And he was so much in love with her that she took her to his mother's tent, and he felt consoled after his mother's death. So he loved her. Great. Wow, how romantic. However, the turning literally a one page after in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, from that lovely story till the beginning of the next story, we hear the following story. Isaac and Rivka, after they wait for 20 years to have kids, they finally have twins, a very famous twin, with Esav and Yaakov. Esav is a hunter, a man of the field, a man of war, a man of hunting. And Yaakov, Jacob, is a man of sitting at home, maybe learning, helping his mommy, etc., etc. He's at home. His two brothers don't fit. They may be twins, but definitely not identical twins. One is pushing to that direction, and the other is pushing the other direction. Clearly, they don't seem eye to eye. It doesn't even seem that they got along throughout the process. But the most painful line in this is that the description, the way the book of Genesis described the parents' relation to them. It says, and Yitzchak loves Esau, and Rebecca, loved Jacob. The psychology of it is there's a variety of explanation, but one of the most obvious one is you can say that Yitzchak by himself, a man of the field, he liked the field, as we learned about it before. He's the man of the outside, of the outdoors, and therefore he loves Esau, cares about him because it represents the fields. The other explanation is exactly the opposite. Yitzchak was a very humble man, very homey, close to his mom, close to his dad. Therefore, when you see somebody like Esau that's going outside, he's attached to him. Rivka comes from a family that dishonesty and misbehavior is part of their basic lines. We know that her father had no backbone, and her brother, as we learn very shortly in the Bible, is a conniving person. He's trying to, when Yaakov comes to work for him, for his daughters, does all this kind of finagling not to work with him or to get the best out of him without paying. So we have the statement that Yitzchak, our forefather, loved Esau, and Rivka loved Yaakov. Now, this is all fine. Every family has a favorite child, as much we all not trying to say to our kids, oh, we love you all the same. It's nice, but we all know the truth. There's some kids you like more, some you like better. You all love them, you care about them, but naturally, we attach ourselves to individuals, and this is part of the human being to care about the others. This is part of what we do, what we feel close to each other. So, a few years pass by, life goes on, and Rivka is listening to a conversation between Yitzchak and his favorite son, Esau. And the conversation goes thus. Please, my son, go to the field, hunt for me something, so I'll have the news upon me, and I shall bless you. and I'll give you the blessing of Abraham. Esau, whatever bad context we want to put it in, whatever negative connotation we like to put in, which we do in the future few verses or future few chapters, was absolutely devoted to his father. He cared about him. He watched him. He took care of him. He played with him. He learned with him, maybe. Who knows? He was somebody that really cared about his father in any way, shape, and form. And that's what he did. So when the moment he hears that order, go and hunt for me, he goes. Rivka, that she's very afraid of the opportunity in hand, and she's really afraid that the brachot, the blessings of Isaac, which basically referring to mainly referring to the blessing of Avram to Yitzchak, that your kids, your kin, shall inherit this land, and your kin shall be my kin, be the kin of God. Your kin will be always watch over them and care of them. That she was very afraid will come to herself. So what she does, she goes to her son, convince him, as his mother, to go and hoodwink his father. What Yaakov did, in any way, shape, or form, whatever you want to look at it, it was for the greater good, and we at least look at it as the greater good and better for us, Jewish people, was conniving, lying, unacceptable, in any way, shape, or form. Look at yourself and tell me if your child will tell you something like that. Will pretend he's the older brother that you love in order to get a blessing, get something from out of you. In the order of his mother, the reaction in a normal, even normal modern world will be tremendously negative. I mean, this is cheating in the most basic level. When somebody knows that the other spouse has a love, affinity, care about somebody, and he goes specifically behind the back to hoodwink them, to lie to them, to cheat them. This doesn't say anywhere that Yaakov Yitzchak hate Yaakov any way, shape, and form. That's not said. But clearly he loved Esau more. It was obvious. It was so obvious that the books were in front of us. Book of Genesis explained that clearly. Yitzchak loved Yaakov. Yitzchak loved Esau. That's what he did. And his dear wife, which he loved, which he claimed he loved, this is also the statement of the same book, his beloved wife, goes behind his back and make sure that her favorite child, her lovely child, Yaakov, will gain the blessing. The amount of question of this text is mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. Normal couple, we'll discuss it. This is a major issue. Why not discuss it? Have a conversation about it. Who deserves the blessing? Who doesn't deserve the blessings? Explain. If you think you're wrong, if you think you're right, the name is Rivka, go explain to your husband who loves you, who cares about you. Tell him. Explain. Talk to him. You go today to any modern marriage counselor, the first thing he'll tell you is talk about the issue at hand. Don't skip, don't hide, have a conversation. Don't bury the hatchet. Just go and talk about it. Have a conversation. Here, our forefathers seems to have, for the lack of a better word, dysfunctional family relations. The next step after, when all three of them have interaction, both Rivka, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have a conversation, is after Rivka again overhear a conversation or a discussion, or she thinking that what Esau is planning to do is killing his own brother. Killing his own brother. So she's so nervous about it, she said, you know what, I can't deal with it. She go to her husband, and she said to her husband, you know what, I really don't like the wives that your son brought in. Basically, she's stepping on his toes. No, just I don't like your son, Esau, which is also her son, but she's apparently considering her son. Also don't like his wives, which is very normal, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law relationship, always nice. But that's we're telling him, and what's happening now? Then, only then, Yitzchak is actually calling Yaakov, and basically, it's almost seemed like he's bestowing on him the blessing that he was asking before, but now more openly. Now, again, conversation is not clean. It's not a conversation that Yitzchak decide one day, you know what, I was wrong. My wife was right. I'll go and bring my son and I'll talk to him. No, it's by definition. There's no choice. You have to send him away. What can I do? Continue on this conversation. And we're going on with another family. The next family we're talking about in the book of Genesis is the family of Jacob himself. Jacob, as we know, have two major stories. The first major story is Yaakov love and infatuation with his wife Rachel. Jacob, as we know, arrived to his future father-in-law, his uncle, house, and he asked immediately when he saw Rachel on the well, he fell in love with her, kissed her immediately. He immediately wanted to marry her. Came to her father-in-law and said, "You know what? I want to marry her." Father-in-law was a nice, lovely businessman. Apparently, he said, "You know what? You don't have any money. You don't have any income. You can't go back home to get more money or money at all to pay for whatever. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know if you have a job. Letting Torah all day, I don't know if that does it for me. You want to work for me? Go ahead. Here's the deal. You're going to work 7 years for my daughter Rachel, my daughter Rachel. After 7 years, that will be the deal." Really not great family relationship again, but what can you do? Yaakov does it willingly. And it says time passed extremely rapidly because he loved her so much. It was like in his eyes, it was like single days, like just few days. And immediately in love with her. The Torah goes that it's been 7 years and getting to the wedding night. Now, Rachel had a sister named Leah. And Leah was not as beautiful, or at least the way it's described in the text, not beautiful. And Rachel was concerned that his sister will not get married. So what she did, according to the story, according to the text, she gave her and dressed her sister like herself. So when she will get married, Yaakov will not know the difference between Rachel and Leah, and he will marry Leah, and then we'll work it out. Again, Yaakov is not a stupid man. Yaakov is not an imbecile. Yaakov knows that his father-in-law, Lavan, which it's funny because the word in Hebrew, Lavan, means white, is anything but white. It's dark, it's cold. Man has no heart, doesn't care about his kids. We'll see all of this in the future of the text. But when Avram says to him, when Yaakov says to Rachel, I'm sure it's not going to be good, so let's make a deal. I'll give you all kind of sign of codes, or maybe it was words, maybe it was emotions, to get married. So therefore, I know that I'm actually going to be better with you and not with your sister. But Rachel, because again, she was a very kind person, very caring, she said, she said to herself, I can't do this. So she gave her sister all those codes. Apparently it was very dark in those days. And when Yaakov wake up next morning, oh my God. He immediately, obviously now it's light and everything is obvious. That's not Rachel. That's Leah. Now, I don't know what a normal human being is supposed to do. Clearly it's part of the story and there's a message there. But just imagine, this person you love the most. Yaakov and Rachel spent 7 years together, I presume, fantasizing to get together, I presumably thinking about that lovely time when they be together, about the union. Thought about it for 7 years. That's what he talked about. For 7 years, there was a consideration. All of a sudden, the wife you support, you trust and stuff, tell you, you know what? I will make my decision. I will do whatever I want. I will make you marry my sister first because I care about her. Which brings, again, to this dysfunctionality of this family. Really? We don't have to go to these extreme cases. If somebody you know knows about what you care, you know about all the effort you put in, and tell you basically in the last moment, not last moment, moment after the last moment, to go to hell, what would you do? Yaakov, as we know, just make it a nice ending story. Yaakov really loves her, and Yaakov is really accepting this and marrying Leah with, I think, all his heart. It's a big question what the rabbinical world of modern days will do with this kind of marriage. And he married his sister, and then waited another 7 years and worked for Rachel and again married Rachel. Now, this is one part of dysfunction. The second part of dysfunctioning family is a story that happens a few years later. Well, we're doing fast forward in time. We get back to the land of Israel. Yaakov has 12 kids, 12 boys, 1 girl. The girl name is Dinah, right? We have a conversation. Again, the scenario is the following. Dinah was a young girl, and she was hanging around with the local people around, and the local son of Chieftain, son of the king or chieftain of the city of Shechem, a guy named by the fabulous name Hamor, terrible name to have somebody, donkey in Hebrew, basically meet her, and the best way to describe it in modern technology is day tripping her. Now, there's all days, different times, different rules. Because he's so afraid from the reaction of Yaakov and his family, he comes, he begs for mercy, begs for forgiveness. He said, whatever you want us to do, we will do for you. We're really sorry. We really like the girl. We're really sorry. It was an accident. Yeah, no idea. But that's what he says. And Yaakov, with the advice of his children, which apparently were all mammoths of human being, powerful, strong, probably very beautiful also, just to make it sure, also come from a good family. Tell them, okay, we accept your forgiveness. We'll convince the girl it was an accident, it was a mistake. I don't know what they will tell her. Dysfunctional, I mentioned it before. And then telling him, okay, so if you circumcise yourself, which is our custom, as we know from way back there, if you will circumcise yourself, we will marry you. We'll take your daughters, you take our daughters, we'll have a relationship, it'll be great, we'll be one big happy family. Story goes that in the third day, again, that famous 3 days, we saw it before by Avram's story. Third day is a lot of pain, it's have to do also with blood, clothing and stuff. It's normal, it's also today like this. 2 sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi, take the swords and basically annihilate the entire city. I don't know if the description of the city is 100 people, 200 people, 10,000, I don't know. The minimum is supposed to be 230, but they killed everybody, right? Till this point, there's no conversation between Yaakov to his sons. The only conversation Yaakov and his son have is when the 2 brothers, Levi and Shimon, are coming back. The father said, what are you doing? Now they will kill us. How dare you do that? The damage is going to cause us. They're all going to come against us. And the 2 brothers, the 2 sons, reflected and said, listen, father, our daughter, our sister, will not be treated like a prostitute from the street. That's it. There's not even the explosion between the father and son. It's one-liner. How do you do that? That's the reason. Another great explanation of conversation. The symptoms of this relationship, the symptom of disconnection between the father and son, the relationship that we have here, a mind-boggling. This is it. This is a relationship we can have. This is a relationship we have in the Bible. We have nothing positive. Everything seems so negative, or at least darkly clouded. Later on, you have the story about Joseph and his brothers, or we call Joseph the multicolor coat. Clearly, again, Yaakov really loves his son Joseph. He loves him. He loved Joseph. He appreciated from all the other kids. But he's so blind to the differentiation, to the fact that he chooses the son that nobody get along. He doesn't even know how to control it. It seems like he doesn't even know what to do. And then, because I think Yaakov was, in a sense, I don't know if oblivious, it's not the right word. Yaakov did not fathom the hate between the brothers and themselves. It's so negative, so bad. So one day you see that the brothers not coming back, that they were shepherds, and the time to spend outside the house was a bit too long. So he was concerned. So he sent his son, Joseph, to them, without really reflecting before what's going to happen, or what's going to be the consequence of that thing. So again, we have a marvelous conversation between the brothers and themselves, basically discussing in length what to do with his brother. So when Joseph comes there's a discussion if to kill them, or just put him in a pit, or maybe just to sell him. Really? This is what we're supposed to learn? This is our concept of what the forefathers were? It's really, literally mind-boggling. It doesn't get better. I mean, the story goes, they're going back to Egypt. There's a famine. They have to go to the land of Egypt. They go back. Lies, screaming, cheating. The maybe positive point we have is when the brothers actually revealed themselves to Joseph. In the end of the famine is basically a time of the unification of the 12 brothers and the father with Joseph in Joseph's palace. And these are, after all the cheating, lying, conniving stuff, there's some conversation about love, and then basically Joseph tells his brother, I am Joseph, I'm your brother, I'm still alive, is my father still alive? And the brothers were so terrified, they're terrified from him, so he couldn't answer. And they came close, and he approached them, and he brings them together. Clearly, we have to find something that explains this. We know, at least the way traditionally it was done, we 100% believe, at least from our perspective, that every word in the Bible, and more so in the 5 books of Moses, is done by the divinity itself. Every word is accurate. Every line is important. I can even summarize this entire long question, which always love the story, to do things, is A, what is the significance of all these stories? In a way, the story of the forefathers, what we know about them, is minimal. Yitzchak, our forefather, who lived for, if I remember correctly, 157 years. What we know about him? We know about him that when he was 27, he was sacrificed. It didn't work well to God. I mean, God actually forgave and did whatever can be done, and told him to not to worry about it. And God gave the promise to Avram, but that was 137. When We know that 3 years later, basically, he got, not 13 years later, he got married to Rivka. 20 years later that, we know that he had 2 sons. Then we know he gave a bracha to Yitzchak. And that's it. Yitzchak lived 180 years. 180 years, and the only thing we know about him is 1 Torah portion, really, and that's it. What the man did for 180 years, the only thing we have from him is 5 stories. Avram Avinu was not much better than that. Avram get 2.5 Torah portions. Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes, gets 4. It's true that Moshe Rabbeinu get 4 books, but this is our forefathers. This is the essence of our religion, the essence of our truth, the essence of what we do. This is where we come from. This is the story that's supposed to be part of our essence. This is the story that's supposed to lead us on. So why these stories? Why specifically these stories? I mean, I'm sure it was hundreds of thousands of hours of conversation between Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's the mind-boggling of it has become even worse if one starts realizing that for significant time of Yitzchak's life, Avram was there. 75 years of his life, Avram was there. There's no conversation about the wedding. There's no conversation about the relationship between Yitzchak to Avram. Is Yitzchak and Avram had a relationship after Yitzchak married Rivka? Doesn't say anywhere. Not in the text. Yitzchak and Yaakov, the same thing. Yitzchak and Yaakov lived from the same time for a long period of time as a father and son. And there's almost no relationship that we know of. When Yaakov come back to the land of Israel with 12 kids, his brother, Esau, that we mentioned before, wants to kill him. He goes to visit him on the spot. He's going there in one condition, to kill him. The tradition goes, and that we've seen from the story, that Esau come and he become more merciful, one opinion, or he sees the size of Yaakov's sons, that all of them are powerful and strong, and therefore don't mess with them. And he starts saying, okay, we'll separate our own ways, have fun. We have to continue exploring these stories and understanding deeply what is it all about. Why these stories? It's not obvious. It's not just a lack of telling. It's not a lack of ability. It's specifically Moshe Rabbeinu, the author of this book, with the divine guidance or deduction, actually go step by step to tell the stories the way they are. We have lore, we have other traditional texts around surrounding it, but in this text, why this? Why in that way? So I really like to go back to where I started from. Well, the nature of people is to find a deeper meaning. Find stories that are complex, trying to understand the cause and shape and form, and the light and vessels, and the 4 different emotions and 6 different lights, whatever. The story goes that when somebody had a tremendous question was of significant magnitude, came to the Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement, and he told him, oh, I don't understand this text. It's very complex, and Rashi says that, and Tofut said that. He said, before you go so far, there's one verse in the book of Genesis that I'd like you to explain. The line, it says, Ba'achot, describe the descendants of Esau, actually, that his descendants, and one of the lines there is describing, there's a lineage going son of son, son of son, daughter, father, and so on and so forth. And then he goes, um, says this line, which is really not really clear when it says that. He's referring to all the sons of Esau and their generation who they married to, which presumably is important for, lineage and kings and so forth. It says one of them is the sister of this guy. These are the daughters of Lotan, Hori the Haimam, and their sister Lotan Timnah. Now the Rebbe told the man, if you can explain me that verse, I'll explain the rest. Sometimes going to the deeper meaning of text is what we have to do. But when we're teaching our kids, when we're teaching our fundamental ideas to our children or to our friends, we have to deal with the basic notions. We have to deal with basic stories. We have to start dealing with those stories that are disturbing even the basic level, and trying to find them explanations. This is my fourth night working on it, and trying to find a real solution that will encompass all of this, that will finally work out something that will bring all these stories, all these questions about the specific stories throughout the history into line. Thus far, I have no luck. I can come up with something that I think has in it a key to understand. Judaism as a religion or as nation is about pragmatism. You have to be pragmatic. You have to do. If we take the covenant, the first covenant, the most important covenant with God, if we take about two of them that everybody talks about. One is the covenant between Avram and God. How is the covenant being sealed? This covenant being sealed between Avram and God by Avram making a decision to circumcise himself, making a physical and pragmatic notion. Later on, the next covenant, who is the most important covenant for us as people, is a covenant in the choice of God of the nation of Israel, the Am Yisrael, the Bnei Yisrael, to be his children, be his chosen nation. Also, the famous line is that God tells Moshe, here's the commandment. And instead of people saying, you know what, let's consider it, let's think about it, we'll make a committee, make a board meeting, we'll consider it again, make another board meeting, make a decision, call the CPAs, call the lawyers. No, the Jewish people as one, as a unified voice said, everything God has told us, we shall do. Then we shall hear. So it's still important to understand what we're doing, but the first notion is to do. I have a feeling when I read the text that this entire story, this entire history of this family is about the pragmatism, about what to do, what's the action to take. One of the old tradition about the story of Eve and Adam is, basically, Eve, not Adam, had two options in their hands. First option was to continue the life in Garden of Eden, which means everything is supplied to you, everything is good, you reach divinity, everything is perfect, all splendid, just peachy. But the other option was to go to Earth, go to actually the physical domain, and struggle, have the work, make it better place, taking the physical, make it spiritual, take the physical, make it God's domain physical. It's really not hard to make God's domain in a spiritual context. It's really not families. It's much harder to be devoted to God when things are not as perfect, when things are coming as a struggle, when things are part of us, what we do. And therefore, when the conversation with Adam and the snake, with Chava and the snake, is really what the conversation is about. Snake tells Chava, I'm here to appoint you. What's the option? Option number one is it can be blemishless. Be fine. You don't know better. Everything is okay. You continue whatever you do. And that's it. If you want to be like God, you have to know good and bad. You have to make decisions. You have to make decisions not just for yourself. decision you're about to make by eating this apple, grain, etrog, whatever it was, that conversation, that decision is for the sake of all humanity. This is what you're going to make for the entire mankind. Are you going to be pragmatic enough to make this decision? And by Chava taking the fruit, the forbidden fruit, the fruits of knowledge, eat it. Later on, give it to Adam. Made decision for mankind to be pragmatic, to do, to create, to change, to form, to do things that if we will stay in Gan Eden, stay in paradise, we'll be able to do that. I think it'll be just dandy. Absolutely lovely. Eve, Chava, made that decision for mankind to eat. I believe that this is part of the explanation throughout those stories. One of the most horrifying stories in the book of Genesis is the story of the two daughters of Lot. Lot was a cousin of Avram, who was basically a judge in the city of Sodom, which was turned to ashes by God, the part of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the only three people who survived the destruction of that city were Lot himself and his two daughters. When they eventually managed to reach a cave and they hide there in the night, and they realize, at least the assumption is, that the daughters thought the entire world collapsed. And now their father, Lot, is exactly like Noach, is the last one to remain. And these two girls are the option, the hope for mankind. So they have a relationship with him. They have sexual relationship with him, and both get pregnant from their own father. It's a horrendous story. But again, it's to show, I think that's what comes to show these stories and many others, about the pragmatism of what we have to do. Sometimes there's no choice. Sometimes you have to do things that are uncomprehendable. And I think that is the most tremendous story about Rivka and Yitzhak. What Rebecca tells Isaac is, I'm going to take my son Jacob because I think he's the right one. Not just I think the right one, I know he's the right one any way, shape, or form. And because you love me, because you care about me, I'm going to make something that will drive you insane. I'll make a decision, something to do that you will feel that this is a betrayal maybe. It's worse than betrayal. It's taking your favorite son and cast him down. Take the other child, which you don't like, and really make, again, this pragmatic decision to do. And this kind of pattern of pragmatism, of actions that sometimes are questionable, weird, odd, unexplainable, and tremendously painful, are the teaching of the pre-Matan Torah, pre-receiving the Torah religion. You have to make a decision. You have to make those things. You have to take the steps forward. There's no code of law. You make the code of law. You move it forward. You make it the decision. The pragmatism has to take place. I had to take the decision because Yaakov had to take future. Yaakov is the future. I'm going to push him to become the future. I don't know what else is there. I'm sure there's hundreds, thousands of explanations. I like this explanation because it make you understand sometimes the time we live in. Time we live in is, as you know, it's clearly very hard in Israel right now. I mean, we have what we call single individual terrorist attack. There's people who don't have background, people don't have reason to attack more than the general rules. They're making decisions to do this. We again have to be pragmatic. We have to make a decision. As you can tell, the Israeli police and armies, God gives them strength, make decisions, sometimes very pragmatic decisions. To make decisions, we're not almost very welcome worldwide. That's the time. We have, and sometimes you don't have a choice. Is if the world puts you in a corner, what choice you have? You have to react. You have to do. The the notion of the world is sitting passively and not comprehending we have to do something. We have to care. We have to know. We have to move forward. Is a major lacuna in humans in general. We have to find a way to do things, obviously with the least amount of pain and suffering to others, and maybe without pain and suffering, just kindness and graciousness and caring about other people. This is also problematic, but to do, and it's no longer enough to sit and at home and contemplate doing nothing. You actually have to contemplate and do something. We see it around here, we see it everywhere. It's part of our heritage, it's part of our tradition, it's part of what Judaism is about to do. If it's about caring, it's protecting, it's worrying about people, we have to do this. One question I've been asked many times is, you have the Talmud, you translate the Talmud, everything is fine, and then they quit, speak. You say in Hebrew, it's enough, just sit at home, do nothing. Accomplish a major accomplishment, not me personally, but our organization. Therefore, sit at home, do nothing. That's the notion. The answer is no. We have to do more. We have to care to do more. This is what our organization, many others, but definitely our organization is to do more. We, as I mentioned, we have this new commentary on the Chumash, the 5 books of Moshe. We're working on the similar work in English. We have a commentary on the Mishnah, commentary on Rambam. We do work on translation of we have to do more. We have to show the love. We have to show the care. It's not enough just to say. We actually have to go and do. We have to care about things. We have to do whatever we can to bring it to the world. Again, thank you all for participating in the Global Day of Jewish Learning, and I hope you enjoy yourself tremendously. Thank you.